So I am having lunch with a friend of mine, and we started talking about seasons of dryness, seasons that you have because things aren't going well, um, things are not happening the way you intended or believed, and so you start praying and it doesn't happen, and so he just started sharing with me about the fact that his love, if you will, had started to grow cold. And when he said it, he didn't say it like that. He was talking about how the love for the job and the love for what he was doing had started to kind of wane. Um, but he identified when it happened. He said it happened when the the comparison, the comparing started. It happened when he started striving after things that were uh, created by the conversations and the relationships he had with people around him in the business or whatever it is. He's not a pastor. He's a you know he has a regular job. He has a business, and he said that the focus became greater on those things than on what he first did when he was doing business. Now, when he's talking, I'm hearing God say, like, this is what the problem is. And he says this. He says, you have left your first love. And so I'm reading this to you. This passage here is in uh, Revelations 2. I'm reading out of the NIV. It's just what popped up. And I'm going to read it to it. And it says, verse 2b, it says, these are the words of him who holds the seven stars in his right hand and walks among the seven golden lampstands. I know your deeds, your hard work and your perseverance. I know that you cannot tolerate wicked people that you have tested, those who claim to be apostles but are not, and have found them false. You have persevered and have endured hardships for my name and have not grown weary. And I was like, well, I kind of grown weary, but this issue that I definitely see is like, yeah, I think that's me. I mean, I think that's us. I think we're trying to do the deeds that God's called us to do. The hard work is definitely present. The perseverance is clear. We don't like to tolerate wicked people. We definitely test the false teacher. Those things seems to me like, yeah, that's us. And he says in verse 4, it says, yet I have this against you. You have forsaken the love you had at first. And that's the passage that came to mind when my friend was talking. And I had to start thinking, and he literally asked me this. He says, do you remember what were the things that you were doing when you started ministry? And I kind of stopped and I was thinking for a minute. And I was like, yeah, I kind of do. And then as I remembered those things, I started to get a little encouraged a little bit like, yeah, I remember doing X, Y, and Z. And so I'm asking you in the same way, like, are you doing the things in which God saved you for? When you did them, you sensed that God was in love with what you were doing. He was already in love with you, of course, but that's shown by the case of Christ. But like he was like acknowledging what you were doing, and you felt joy by doing those things, and in turn you had this like excitement about that, not about how many people liked your video, not about who attended your service, not about um, does my marriage look like that, does my bank account work. None of those things matter as long as you felt as though you had met with God and He said, man, good job, I'm proud of you. And that expectation should be the prior priority in our ministry. It should be, is God happy with what I'm doing? And as I grow closer to doing those things and getting better at those things, that love that He has for me, does He pour out that joy and allow me to have life. And so if you look at what it says at the end of there, it says, whoever has ears, verse 7, of what the Spirit says to the churches, to the one who is victorious, I will give the right to eat from the tree of life, which is in the paradise of God. That's the hope I have, is that we start looking for God to speak to us, to encourage us as to the things that we're supposed to be doing, keeping our eyes and focus on that and not on the things that are man-made trajectories. Do you have X amount of people? Does your bank account look like this? Is your ministries starting to impact these people? It seems like we're constantly focused on things that look good for the church that is doing them, but is not for you. Are you doing the things in which, when you became aware of Christ and you said yes to him, are you doing those things in which he saved you for? That's the encouragement. Do the things that God saved you for, so that your love for him would grow and not grow cold.